couple weeks ago, I talked about how I was really fighting the urge to purchase a Louise Carmen or a Paper Republic A5 sized leather cover. And since then, I've been thinking about some of the stationery items that I was unsuccessful in talking myself out of and how I feel about them now. So I thought today it would be interesting to reflect on some of the stationery items that I regret purchasing. These are the items that I was unsuccessful at talking myself out of buying, and for one reason or another have some regrets. My hope for this video is that I don't give off the impression that I dislike these products or that they're terrible quality. Quite the opposite, in that they're really beautiful stationery items and I'm so lucky that they're in my collection, but just for one reason or another, they didn't quite fit a need, or they're just not really getting used as much as I anticipated. So I think it's a good opportunity to reflect, and then I can decide what I want to do next, whether that's maybe rehoming them or trying to come up with other ways that I might be able to use these products so that I can appreciate them more than they're currently being appreciated right now. The first two stationery items that I regret are related to my 5-year Hobonichi Stappo. So the Hobonichi Stappo, in case you are unfamiliar, looks like this. And I'm not in love with this cover, to be honest, because I've never really liked how it has this extra spacing around the cover, which means that if you want to stand it upright, it can bend, and the inner lining started to separate from the cover pretty early on after I got this 5-year. And so fairly quickly, I started to research 5-year Hobonichi covers, and I was quite new to, I guess, doing research or looking up covers. And so I really didn't understand how difficult it would be to find a cover that would fit a book this thick. I think just because I knew that leather stretched, I thought that it would be one of those things where I could get a leather cover and stretch it to fit the book. One of the other covers that I purchased as well was this gorgeous Atelier Phileas covers. This is an A5 and it's made with a very soft leather, and it's very simple on the inside. The A5 kind of fit, but it was so squishy that it further damaged my cover. I don't know if you can see here, but it does have a little bit of a lift over here. And at the time, I really didn't have any other A5 notebooks that I thought I would use this for. And so it was a very expensive purchase. It came all the way from the Nomato store in, I can't remember where they're located, but I paid a lot for this, plus I paid for duties. And while it's a beautiful cover, I haven't actually had a use for it since. So I've just put it in the dust bag, and it's kind of sat in my, closet ever since. So I just didn't think it was worth stretching this out to make this fit in case I ever wanted to sell the cover. And I also didn't want to alter this cover just to make it fit in that cover. So that was the first disappointment. And after searching through all the different options, I got to a point where I thought, I just want to protect this. Perhaps I should just go with what Hobonichi offers. And at the time, Hobonichi really only had this cover, which is the natural leather. And I think they had a red version. I actually picked up this cover from Wonder Pens, and to be honest, I am just not in love with it. I think I had hoped that it would patina a lot more over the years, and you can see even though I've been keeping up regularly with this book, it's not really, it hasn't patinaed that much. I mean, if you look at the inside cover, you can see compared to what it looked like when I first got it, it's definitely darkened. But I don't know, I just find this cover a little uninspiring. Now Hobonichi has come out with so many adorable 5-year covers that I really wish that I had maybe just waited a little longer for a better option to come. But this purchase was kind of made out of, I guess, a little bit of impatience and sort of having the mindset that a cover is better than no cover. And so this is the best option out of all the other options that I've considered. And I just think now, knowing there'll always be new cover options to consider, I would have preferred to just wait until I found a cover that I was really excited about and spoke to me. So in terms of the 5-year, I'm going to keep this cover. We are on year 4 of year 5. I don't really want to sell like a used cover that's got this patina on it, and I don't really want to buy a new one, but I think when I finish this 5-year, instead of reusing this cover for the next 5-year, I might treat myself to a new 5-year cover. The next thing is this beautiful A5 Superior Labor and Wonder Pens A5 sized portfolio. So when I first discovered how much I loved Superior Labor and my, I guess, first few products blew me away, I had my sights set on getting more of the Wonder Pens exclusive items. Now, the problem with these Wonder Pens items, which if you have tried collecting Superior Labor, especially the ones that are in collaboration with Wonder Pens, they sell out so quickly, which means that there's very little time to think about whether I really need some of these items. I felt at the time that I really needed a pen wallet because I had started collecting more than one pen and I really wanted to protect them. So this was a clear need that I was able to use right away and still use today. However, when I saw that these were coming back in stock and that this was a special edition, so there were 25 of this run made, and this was the 9th, this is the number 9 out of 25. This one is special because it has red stitching and a red zipper. And on the back, it has this quote from Charles Dickens that says, "For there was something very comfortable in having plenty of stationery." And on the inside, it's very similar to this, where there is like one larger flap and then a middle section. So I believe the Hobonichi cousin does fit in here, but I never used it as a cousin cover. Currently, I use it for storing things that I use for Happy Mail. So I have some loose leaf sheets of Tomoe River paper that I got from Good Impressions. These are meant for rings, but when I ordered them, I asked that she not punch the holes in them, and I use these for writing letters. And I also have a sticker release insert that has a lot of like Happy Mail related stickers that I like to use when I'm sending Happy Mail. I think part of the issue with this is it's a very beautiful cover, and as someone who was kind of obsessed with the Superior Labor, I got into a phase where I was pretty much willing to buy anything that they released with Wonder Pens. And the regret comes with the fact that I made a few decisions without having a clear plan. So it was kind of like buy first, worry about the use case later. And over time, this just sat in the plastic for months after I bought it. And it wasn't until I decided to use it to store some of the papers that I pulled it out of the plastic. But honestly, it's really not something that I'm reaching for. And it really doesn't necessarily fit as like a Happy Mail letter. Like I can't pull this out and write some Happy Mail and finish it all in one, because I like to add ephemera into it. I like to stamp my Happy Mail, have envelopes that I like to decorate. So this isn't really practical for storing everything that I access and use when I'm writing Happy Mail. And so it's not like I'm glad that I'm using it, but it's really not getting a lot of use. And you can tell, like, this has patinaed and has gotten so much darker. Like, this is light brown and this is light brown, but you can see this one has gotten so much darker compared to this one. So yeah, I think my takeaway here is that I kind of fell into the FOMO. Like, I saw that these were coming back in stock and I knew they were going to sell it quickly. So instead of taking the time to think about what I would actually use this for, I just jumped on it and I bought it. And because I didn't have a proper plan, it is very underutilized, and it makes me sad because these are very expensive items, and I guess I just feel bad when I have things that are so beautiful but aren't getting used. And so overall, even if I really love the company that's producing the item, I don't want to purchase it unless I have a very specific use case in mind. And if it means that I miss out, then it means I miss out. But in the beginning, when I was really in my like TSL obsession, that was really hard for me to think that way. I was more so kind of falling prey to that scarcity mindset. And I was just thinking, like, if I don't jump on this now, then I may never get another opportunity, because who knows when they'll have another restock. And what I've learned over the years is that there will be another restock. Sometimes you have to wait a little longer, but there typically is a restock. And I have a feeling that if there's ever a point when they will no longer produce the items, they will let us know. The next item is another superior labor item. This is one of the engineering pouches, and this was unfortunately another FOMO purchase that was further driven by there being a sale. So the superior labor items almost never go on sale. And I've always been interested in this shape, and I love the canvas next to this light brown. I think that's one of my favorite superior labor color combinations. It's this brown color and the red color that they do. And I'd heard such great things about these engineer pouches, especially that they're made in such a way that they can stand on their own. So when you open them up, there's like it can fit a lot of stuff. Currently, I'm using this to store some extra sticky notes, color wheel, and I have a bunch of markers that I reach for on a semi-regular basis. I guess the issue is like there's so much room in here that things kind of get lost. So if I am wanting to access some of these markers, I have to kind of take everything out and then lay them out on a table anyway. So this isn't always the most practical for me, but I mean, that's just kind of a me thing. I've realized I just really like to see everything first instead of like digging through a bag like this. So to be honest, I just don't really reach for this that often. And I find something like this much more useful because you can have this open on your desk and I can see everything in here. And anything that's kind of oddly shaped that isn't like a pen shape, I can just store in here. So I like that there's different compartments and I like the way that it lays open. So there's nothing wrong with this, but it's just not something that I reach for on a regular basis. And maybe I just need to rethink how I'm using it, because as I'm saying this, I could see this being a really great travel bag. This is why I'm glad I'm looking at these things, because I remember being really excited about getting this, and there was probably a little bit of maybe FOMO and just wanting to have this item that so many other people who were superior labor fans seem to have. I don't love that I kind of made the decision perhaps a bit more on FOMO rather than having a specific use case. And I think it's important to reflect on that. So I will say I have slowed down a lot on buying the Superior Labor products. I really love the brand. I love that they hand make everything themselves in Kurashiki, and it was so special that I was able to visit one of their stores and see these items in person. But I have a lot of their items at this point, and I do think that I've kind of reached a bit of a saturation point where I don't really need anything more, and I just want to appreciate the items that I do have. Okay, the next item is another storage related item. This one is the Hobonichi Stappo, and I got this in the plain canvas because my thought was that I could slowly get pins and patches and decorate this over time. I loved the idea of using it as a desk organizer, so organizing a bunch of my stationery so that I could have it on my desk, kind of the way Hobonichi markets these Stappos. When you open it, there's just all these different compartments, and I remember watching one of their live streams when they were showing you all the things that could fit in here and just being so enamored by all the possibilities. So I knew that I wanted one, even though I didn't necessarily have a specific use case, because what I know about me and my desk is I really don't like having a lot of items sitting on my desktop. I find it kind of stressful. If there's clutter on my desk, then I just feel cluttered in my mind. And so even though I knew that about myself, when I was at the Tobichi store in Tokyo, I guess, to be honest, I wanted to buy something to, I don't know, memorialize the fact that I was actually at the Hobonichi store in person. And this was after I had made my big Hobonichi purchase for that year. So I really didn't need any of the usual things like the techos or any of the accessories. And so this Stappo was really the only thing that I had kind of had on my maybe wish list. And because I was there and I wouldn't have to pay for shipping, I just decided that that would be the item that I would purchase from Hobonichi. So practically speaking, I use this as another Happy Mail organizers. I do find that it is nice to have this. Like when I want to sit down and write Happy Mail, I ideally just pull this out and I'm able to, write my letter. But just like this, it doesn't quite fit everything that I need. And I think what I ideally would have is some kind of storage that would also allow me to store all of the stickers and other types of ephemera that I save for giving away in Happy Mail. So this is pretty good, but I just find that when I'm actually doing Happy Mail, I'm reaching for this. Sometimes I'm reaching for this, and then sometimes I'm just reaching for other things in other areas. So in an ideal world, whatever my solution is, it would just be everything in one place. I bought this without a clear plan. I think we're starting to see a pattern. And I thought there's so many different ways I can use this. I'm sure I can come up with a use case. And now I've come up with a use case, but it felt a little bit forced. And I'm just not sure if this is really the best because I'm still having to kind of bounce around between different storage options. Another thing that I would love to be able to store in here are my actual ink stamps. Like I have a bunch of stamps that I really like to decorate my envelopes with, and maybe I'm asking for too much, but I just think it would be great if everything were in one place so that I wouldn't constantly have to be reaching for different items. So anyway, I think in hindsight, it just would have been better if I had a very specific use case for it, and then I think I would be using it a lot more than I am now. And also with the way I've packed it, it doesn't even quite close properly. The next thing, unplanned ink purchases. I don't know if that's really the best way to describe it, but let me explain some of these purchase decisions. These two are some of the Pilot Iroshizuku inks that have since been discontinued. And when Pilot announced that they were going to be discontinuing these ink colors, I really lost my mind, apparently, and I went and I bought the 3 inks that were being discontinued. I love Kirisame. I actually really am happy that I have that ink, but these 2 inks are really not my preferred shade of pink, and so it feels kind of crappy to have these inks that I bought just because I was worried that I would eventually regret not buying these bottles if later down the road we ended up with another Inaho or Tsukushi kind of situation. But the thing is, I love earthy ink colors. That is my favorite type of ink. I love brown inks. I really love green inks, and I love murky inks. I didn't know about those inks when they were discontinued, but if I had been in the hobby when they were being discontinued, I would have loved those inks anyway, if that makes sense. But these 2 colors aren't really colors that I gravitate towards when I'm writing with them. And so they basically sit on my shelf and kind of collect dust because I panicked when I saw that they were being discontinued. I mean, these are beautiful colors to swatch because they do have some beautiful sheening qualities that are really fun to see, but practically speaking, they're just not really colors that I personally will choose to ink over other ones. And then this is another ink where I just fell into the hype. So I can't remember if it was last year or the year before, but Lamy had re-released, I forget what the ink was called. Was it called Dark Lilac? Anyway, it was this purple ink that everybody was talking about because I guess Lamy had made this ink years ago and it was discontinued and everyone was really excited about them reissuing it. And I think Lamy ended up releasing this ink around the same time. And honestly, I don't even know like how this happened because I didn't even end up with the dark lilac ink, but I ended up picking up this one instead. And it's this, I think it's called Blackberry. It's like this dark purple with a copper sheen. And 2 things about that. So I didn't realize until I got this ink and inked it up in a pen that I actually don't love sheening inks. I realize now that I love shading inks, especially chroma shaders. And I also really love shimmer inks when I'm using something like a Pilot Parallel because I find them very fun to play with. But I don't really love sheening inks. And so I think I just thought that I might like it because I like the concept of purple and copper sheen, but I just didn't really love this ink. And so I remember buying it because I had been so caught up in the hype and I bought it. And I have not used this ink really at all. I inked my Lamy Safari once and then that was it. So this was one of those like fell for the hype and at least in the process learned a little more about my ink preferences. And then these 2 are Ferris wheel press inks. Very early on in my fountain pen journey, I was paying a lot of attention to Ferris wheel press inks because they're headquartered in Canada. So I really liked how a lot of their inks had very Toronto-centric themes. I also liked that they had a collaboration with Wonder Pens and they created Writing Desk, which is one of my favorite brown inks. I started researching a lot of their inks. I watched a lot of different videos and I ended up making a rather large purchase of Ferris wheel press inks. I bought something like almost 10 inks because they were having a Black Friday sale and I wanted free shipping. I went a little crazy. And while some of the inks are arguably very beautiful, this brand taught me that I do not like writing with dry inks. And so Oyster Hour, for example, is a stunning color. I do really love it, but it was a horrible experience in almost every pen that I tried to ink it in. That was just a big disappointment, to buy so many inks and to then learn that I couldn't just rely on the colors that I see in the swatches online or in videos, but there's also an element of paying attention to how the writing experience is with the ink. And so it was a good learning experience for me. I now have quite a few Ferris wheel press inks that are on the lighter side that don't really play well with some of my pens, and I haven't bought any more since. And this color is an example where I tried to do the right thing by buying a sample. So I bought a sample of this jelly bean blue from Ferris Wheel Press, and I finished it. And because I finished it and I enjoyed it, I decided to invest in a bottle. And I have not used this bottle at all since I got it. So I'm actually thinking about maybe selling it, destashing it, or making a bunch of samples out of it and then bringing it to a pen meetup so other people can try it. That is actually something that I don't mind about inks, is while I do have some inks in my collection that I don't necessarily love, I do like that I can share them with other people. And so even if maybe I don't really enjoy using Oyster Hour, perhaps I can share a sample of it with someone else who might be curious about the ink, but then doesn't have to buy a whole bottle just to try it. And the other thing too is with inks like these, I also have the option to mix them with other colors and see if I can get shades of pinks that are more my preference. Definitely buying samples is probably the wiser approach to understanding your preferences, but I will say sometimes I really wanted to try an ink and I just couldn't find it in sample form. Keeping on to the theme of inks, I am adding these Col-o-ring ink testing books to the regrets. So I had been wanting to have some kind of swatching system that would allow me to compare inks a little more easily. And I do have a traveler's notebook that I use as a pen and ink log, and I have one insert that is dedicated to all the different inks that I've inked in a specific pen, so I can compare different inks within a pen. And then I have another insert that's dedicated to different pens for specific inks. And in all transparency, I have been pretty inconsistent with updating that every time I ink a pen. So that's definitely something to reflect on as well. But I found it really difficult to compare ink colors with each other. So for example, if I'm looking for a blue ink, it's kind of challenging sometimes to compare like different blue inks in my collection. And so I started a project last year where I inked up all of the samples and bottles in my collection. And this isn't actually all of them because I've been so lucky that I have been gifted more samples since doing this, but I spent a lot of time filling these out. And while I do think that this is really helpful, I have noticed that this is not the kind of paper that I actually like to write with. So you may know that I have a little bit of an obsession with cream paper. And so I find it less helpful to pick an ink that's on this white paper when it's not really the kind of paper that I'm going to be using anyway. So if I'm trying to pick an ink, I can pick this based on how it looks on this white paper, but it might not look that way on the actual paper that I use. And so once I realized that, I kind of lost my motivation to continue this project. Sometimes when I look at this, I think about all the time that I spent doing this, and I think about the prospect of doing this all over again, and I get a little overwhelmed. I think it's so hard sometimes to commit to projects like this because it's better, in my opinion, to just, figure out the system first and then following through with it. If I'm going to do a project like this where I have individual swatch cards, I'd rather do it on paper that I'm more familiar with or that I'm more likely to use. And so I have been thinking about possibly trying to create my own little cards using maybe MD paper and redoing all of this, but I don't know if that's going to happen because that's going to take a lot of time. I bought one of these, I finished it, I bought a second one, and then I ended up actually buying a few more of these that are currently unopened, and I'm probably going to destash them because I don't really think that I want to continue this. So it's just something that I wish I had thought about when I was planning out how I wanted to catalog my inks, but I thought I would share that just in case you are also contemplating these color rings, just some considerations if you happen to use different papers. Okay, next up, we have a few fountain pens. This beautiful pen is the Bungu Box and Esterbrook collaboration. I had wanted to add an Esterbrook to my collection for a while, but I was waiting for the right opportunity and the right price and the right pen because there are so many beautiful Esterbrook pens, and I really wanted to just pick one that really spoke to me. And for a while, I was really close to getting Tortoise Esterbrook SD or the completely white cracked ice wintry one. Then I randomly saw this pen go up on Facebook Marketplace, and I had just come back from my Japan trip. I was so in love with Bungu Box, and while I had wanted to get a pen at their store, I just didn't want to make an impulsive decision there. And so when I saw this, I thought, okay, I already wanted an Esterbrook, and I love Bungu Box, so the fact this is one of their collaborations, and it's a limited edition, and it's an extra fine nib, I jumped on it. And the price was pretty decent considering it was a limited edition. So I do like this pen, but what this has taught me is that even though this is a really beautiful pen, I'm always reaching for my other pens over this one. And so this pen gets very neglected. Currently it's inked right now because I met with Laura from XOXO Lore a few weeks ago, and she was curious about the Esterbrook, and so I told her that I would ink up my Esterbrook and bring it to her so she could test it out and try it out. And that's really the only reason why it's inked. So I really struggle with this pen because I've thought about selling it, but it's so beautiful, and it really is the only Esterbrook that I have in my collection and probably ever will get. And I jumped on it when I saw it because I really didn't think that hard about it. And I thought, okay, even if I don't like it, I can always resell it, which is probably true, but I do have some regrets. I don't think I'm quite ready to sell it. This is a tough one. As I'm holding it, I'm thinking it's so beautiful. But when I think about the writing experience, when I think about how it feels in my hand, there's just other pens that I prefer more, and I will always reach for more. So I don't know. Not sure about this one. And then this is another one that I do kind of regret. So when this pen came out, this one is the TWSBI Cafe Bronze. I got this in a fine nib, and I fell in love with TWSBI. I had been resisting TWSBI for so long because I kept hearing about their pens cracking, and I'm quite risk averse, and so I really didn't want to invest in a pen that had a reputation for cracking. But when I saw this pen, I just fell in love with it. It was like a very unexpected, like visceral reaction. And I bought this pen and actually fell in love with it. I really enjoy writing with the fine nib. And so when this one came out, I was really excited because this warm chocolate dark brown is actually more my color preference over this lighter, like cafe latte brown. And so I bought this kind of impulsively when they released it. And I got this in an extra fine. And unfortunately, I just do not love the extra fine. I find it just a little too scratchy, but not in like a sailor or a platinum feedback kind of way, more so in a way that I just don't really love it. So I've only inked this up a couple of times and I've really thought about possibly selling it, which is a shame because color-wise, I prefer the color of this dark brown over this light brown, but writing experience-wise, I prefer this one. So I'm thinking about selling this one as well, even though I prefer how it looks, which is a shame. So I guess that's something that I also learned about TWSBI is they were just killing it with the colors that they were releasing last year. There were so many color variations of the TWSBI Eco that they came out with last year that I was so tempted by. Like I really enjoy the matcha, the serpentine, and as much as I really love TWSBI and I am very curious to try their medium nib and their stub nib, I just want to be careful because it's just too easy to collect a lot of TWSBIs. And as much as I enjoy these pens, I'm really finding that I'm not reaching for them as much as some of my other pens. And I just don't like having items that I'm not using regularly. I think maybe that's something to reflect on, but that's just a personal preference. When I get things, I get a lot of satisfaction in using them. So when I have these pens just kind of sitting around, it just makes me feel guilty, or it just, I don't know, it makes me feel regret. So I will do a fountain pen collection video at some point. I think that'll be a very long video. So I think I just need to muster up the energy to film that video. The final item that I regret is one that I am very sad to add to this list. And that is because I know the Deco Rush tapes are divisive in that some people love them and some people really, really dislike them. And I always fell into the camp of loving them because they were a way for me to pick up something from a collection that I really enjoyed without buying maybe like a cover or something bigger. For example, like this 100% orange squirrel collection, I really loved it and I really loved these squirrels, but I didn't want to invest in any of the bigger pieces. And up until this year, I've always been quite lucky with my Deco Rush in that they work fairly well for me. But unfortunately, this Deco Rush is a dud. And no matter how I try to use it, it almost never works. So I acknowledge that I was wrong. I can't use this. And I think this is unfortunately probably the last Deco Rush tape that I'm going to buy from Hobonichi, which is too bad because I'm sure they're going to come out with amazing designs that I'm going to be very tempted by, and I'm just going to have to resist them. I'm going to still try to use this occasionally just because I have it. I've just had some really bad luck with this, and all my usual tricks of using it haven't really worked. And so I think I unfortunately understand why some people really dislike the Deco Rush. I'm just looking at my notes here. So what happened as to why I have some regrets around those purchases is there's a few themes that kind of came out. Like I said, there were a few things where I just didn't have a plan or like a good use case. I had some FOMO. I didn't do enough research. Some of them were impulse buys or due to hype. And yeah, some of my takeaways from all of these items that I talked about are that it's really important to have, at least for me, I think it's really important to have a solid use case. So just being a beautiful product is not enough for me to invest in it if I'm going to be upset that I'm not using it. I think I also want to be honest about my preferences. So for example, like just because it's a TSL item, it doesn't automatically mean that I should buy it. like this, for example. I don't think I'm ready to part with it. I've already invested in it, and maybe I could brainstorm some other ways that I could try using it. And if you have one of these, or if you have ideas on how I could use this, please share them with me. I would really appreciate your ideas. But I think it's really important to have a solid use case, be honest with preferences, don't fall prey for sales, because even in the Ferris wheel press ink example, I did save money on shipping, and I think I saved money on buying multiple bottles, but I ended up with a bunch of bottles that I don't really use. I think that's a really good lesson to learn. And then there's a bunch of slowing down. So instead of buying things impulsively, like this beautiful Esty, it's beautiful, but it's almost like a piece of art at this point where I stare at it all the time, but I just don't really reach for it, because even though it has a lovely writing experience, I just prefer the feel of some of my other pens that are constantly inked and in use. There are some items that I think I could consider selling, and then just slow down and try to avoid getting caught up in scarcity mindset. And then I can also brainstorm other uses. Like for my Stappo, I think it might be interesting to maybe brainstorm other ways that I can use it. And because I already invested in it and it's already here, kind of like my TN, what if I were to take everything out to see what unexpected ways that I could potentially use it instead? I guess I just have a few final thoughts after going through all of this. And one is that experimentation is really part of the hobby. Now that I've gone through all of this, I'm wondering if I really do regret some of my purchases. Like, I do have some inks that just sit there and I don't use, but they did teach me more about what I liked and what I disliked. My favorite stationery items are things that I have a very clear use for and want to use all the time. So something like this, I had a use for it in mind. I also had a very specific use case for this, and these two have stayed the same since I bought it, and I use them every day, and I just really love them. In contrast, I bought this because I felt like it was an affordable price. I liked the color combination, and I thought one can always have another pencil case, but I don't really feel like that's really true for me. So maybe if I use this in a different way, I think I could use this for something else and I would be pretty happy. So TBD on this one. And I really like to work on my FOMO, buy now, think later mentality. I'd like to ask myself, how much would I really regret missing out? When I saw this, I really felt like I only had a very short window to decide. Like, I saw it, I messaged the person selling it, and I believe they had other people interested in the pen. And so because I had reached out first, I guess I had first dibs, and I felt very pressured into making the decision really quickly to buy it. And I wonder, like, how upset would I have been if I had let this go? On the one hand, I haven't seen one of these for sale since, but on the other hand, I barely use it. So I don't know. Is this a sign for me to put this back in rotation and try to use it more? Or should I pass it along to someone who would really appreciate this pen more than I have? And having extras can be meaningful. Even though I don't love some of the inks that I have, and I also have some washi tape that I don't use that often, I do really love being able to share what I have with the community, and it really is one of my favorite ways to engage and interact and connect with the stationery communities. All right, well, if you're still here, thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I would love to know what stationery you regret purchasing and what your thoughts are in terms of next steps. And any suggestions you have about some of the items that I mentioned, please let me know. I would love to hear from you. Otherwise, I hope you're doing well, and I'll see you soon in the next video.